YouTube, today we're going to be doing an updated player tier list since the second major is over, but we're going to be doing things a little bit differently this time around. Now, I know you guys like the tier list with every player in the CDL, but we're going to be doing it just a little bit differently, just so it can be easier for me to do, as well as it being easier to digest. We are going to be splitting up the players in their correct roles, whether it be main AR, flex, or SMG player. So this is going to be the main AR tier list from the beginning of Vanguard up to this point right now. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I think this list is perfect. As you guys can see, we also did remove the F tier from these lists because look, if you are in the CDL, you're not an F tier player. And more importantly, I have OCD, and for some reason it makes the list look a little wonky. So you got to bear with me, but we removed that. D tier is going to be the worst tier. And coming in the D tier, the first player, the 12th best main AR in the CDL is going to be Major Maniac. I hate putting Major Maniac here because I think he is a good player, man. He's a grinder. He seems like a great teammate, has a great attitude. I love his vibe, but numbers don't lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Ball don't lie. And his stats are not pretty. So we know Major Maniac is an S&D specialist, and he helps that Minnesota team out tremendously as an IGL. But to break down game mode by game mode, Major Maniac in hardpoint, which we know isn't his specialty necessarily, he ranks amongst the bottom 2 main ARs in the league in almost every single category. So in hardpoint kills per minute, he comes in at number 12 out of 12. In hardpoint damage, he comes in at number 12 out of 12. In hill time, which you would expect that if he isn't doing that much damage, okay, if he isn't getting that many kills, then he's playing more in the hill and he might not have as many opportunities. Similarly to a main AR like Accuracy or Octane, those are the two that rank in the top 2 for hill time. But Major Maniac is an 11 out of 12. And when you look at the Minnesota Rocker team, I mean, they're bad at respawn in general. He needs to start trying to impact the games more. And then when it comes to control, things don't get any better. He is dead last in kills per game. He is number 9 out of 12 in control KD, and he is 12th in control damage per game. So similarly to hardpoint and just respawn as a whole, Major Maniac is averaging the least kills and the least damage out of any main AR in the league right now. That's not good. But moving on, there is one more player in the D tier, and unfortunately that is going to be Paris Legion's main AR, Tom Gravity. Now Gravity is a very solid player, and I'm glad that he got a shot in the league because he's one of my boys. I talk to him on TeamSpeak quite often, but he's very similar to Major Maniac in his statistics. He's also on the slower side of the main ARs, but he just hasn't really been performing as well as I would have liked him to, if we're being quite honest. Overall, his KD has him sitting at number 8 out of the 12 main ARs in the league. But when it comes to hardpoint, his kills per map, he's 11, only above Major. His KD is number 9. But once again, KD, they're all basically interchangeable besides the top dogs. His hardpoint damage is 9th, and his heal time is 8th. So he's at the bottom 4 for every single hardpoint statistical category. And then moving on to S&D, this is where it really gets rough for Gravity. He's last in kills per round, last in KD, and he's 10th in S&D first bloods. And then moving on to control, he comes in at number 8 for kills per game, number 7 for KD, and number 10 for damage. So a little bit better than the other 2 modes, but still he's just at the bottom for every single category. And I think he needs to, something that he does know, because I've heard people talk about it in the TeamSpeak, he needs to play faster and make a bigger impact, similarly to Major Maniac. You know, he's playing way too safe. He's trying to play too smart in a sense. Moving on to the C tier, the first player that we're going to have is going to be Toronto Ultra's Insight. Now, this player was the breakout player in Cold War. I believe he was the Rookie of the Year, and I thought he was going to keep up the pace that he was on. But unfortunately, something is just not going right for the Toronto Ultra this year in Vanguard. My voice just cracked, so deal with it. Insight, he's just another one of those players. In Cold War, I feel like you can get away with being a little bit more of a post-up, slower main AR. In this game, it's just a little different, which it happens from title to title. You have to change up your play style to fit whatever the most optimal way of playing is. And it's not only just him, it's Toronto Ultra as a whole. But Insight, he's been below average. That's why I have him in the C tier. When it comes to overall KD, Insight is sitting almost at a 1.0. He is currently 7 out of the 12 main ARs. When we're talking about hardpoint, Insight finds himself kind of with a weird mix, because his kills per map has him at 8th out of the 12 main ARs. His KD is 10 out of the 12, but his damage is pretty solid. He finds himself in the top 5 for damage and 3rd just behind Octane and accuracy for average hill time per hardpoint. And now when we're talking about S&D, this is his bread and butter, right? This is what he was known for, or is known for, especially as of last year. And his S&D ranks amongst the ARs in the game are pretty solid. I mean, he is number 2 in kills per round, number 3 in KD. The only blunder, I guess, and not even a blunder, is just his play style, is he does rank in dead last for first blood percentage out of all main ARs. Once again, that's just his play style. He's not really a first blood specialist by any means. He is the player that's going to be alive in the clutch. And he is very good at it, so I can't fault him there. But then when you move over to control, he is 10th in kills per game, only above accuracy and Major Maniac. He's number 8 at KD and number 9 in damage per game. Once again, only above accuracy, Major Maniac, and Tom Gravity. But so he finds himself realistically amongst the bottom 4 for main ARs in both respawns. Like, he has a couple highlights, but in both respawns, he seems pretty insignificant. And that could be because of Toronto's ultra woes as a team, but he just hasn't been the Insight we all know. He does have a good game mode in S&D. I think everyone does know that. So I'm not going to put him in the D tier. I just think he's been playing below average. So that's why he's here. And who else will be joining him? None other than LAT's Octane. Octane, I know people want to say that he is the worst main AR in the league, but it's just not true. And I'll break it down for you. So go ahead, say in the comments that I'm biased. It doesn't matter. I will say this. When I watch Octane, there are a lot of times where he does look very lost. Now, there are a lot of ARs at a lot of times that also look very lost, but Sam has some highlights to his game. Talking about hardpoint at first, Octane does rank in the bottom for most of the statistical categories. He comes in at number 10 for kills per minute, number 11 for KD, and that is a consistent trend. Is his KD is very low compared to most of the other main ARs, which is worrisome, but he does have high damage, and we'll get to that. So even though Sam is tied for the worst KD from all ARs in hardpoint, he does rank number 7 in damage per game and number 2 in hill time. And then we have S&D, which this one is interesting because everyone knows Sam is not the greatest S&D player of all time. Okay, I can name a couple that are better than him, but he has some pretty solid stats as a whole. He ranks 4th for kills per round and first bloods, and his KD does have him at 9th with a 0.98 in the mode, but he's very active on the map. He might die a lot, okay, but he is at least attempting to get first bloods. He is getting kills. Not that that's an excuse. You don't want to have a horrible KD. A 0.98 is not horrible by any means, but I would just like for him to, I don't know, value his life a tad bit more. Now, he does have a lot more bad than good. That's why I have him in the C tier, below average. So realistically, I'm doing this as a combo, as a tier list and a power rankings. So that would have him at number 9. And the last main AR in the C tier is going to be Seattle Surge's accuracy. Accuracy is another one of my favorite players, and I think he is one of the best ARs when it comes to hardpoint. The only issue is he has 2 modes that he ranks damn near dead last for. So when we talk about hardpoint, he ranks number 5 in kills per minute out of all the ARs, number 8 in KD. But like I said, guys, I want to make that very clear. Most of the ARs KD overall in any specific mode are very close, besides the very cream of the crop. So KD is whatever. I'm just doing it for argument's sake, so you guys can get a full grasp of all the stats that I'm taking. He ranks 6th for damage per game, and he is the leader. Number 1 in hill time, everyone knows that. So accuracy is a very good hardpoint player. But the other 2 modes, well, let's just talk about it. In S&D, he's 10 out of 12 for kills per round, only above Tom Gravity and Major Maniac. He's number 8 for KD and number 6 for first blood percentage. So he's in the bottom 4 for 2 out of the 3 stats that are mainly tracked for S&D. Now, like I said, there are a lot of things that aren't on the stats. Okay, I know he's the IGL. I know the leadership he brings. His clutch factor, for example, that you don't have that in the stats. Well, I mean, I guess so. There are stats, you know, like 1v2, 1v3 clutches, but I don't have those stats. Okay, I can't just grab those, or else I would love to. So he's solid at S&D. when you add the stats, as well as knowing his IGLing and his clutch ability, etc., he is solid. But his absolute worst mode is hands down, without a doubt, control. He is 11 out of 12 in kills per game, 11 out of 12 in KD, and 11 out of 12 in damage per game. He's got the trifecta, the three-peat, not the three-peat that you want, but he gets 11th in every single control category. So unfortunately, he also joins the rest of the boys in the C tier, but that does put him at number 8. So he's not quite bottom 4 main AR. Got out of there alive. So the first player in the B tier for the main ARs is Tough, because he wasn't a main AR in the beginning of the game. He was like a flex player, and there was some turmoil. There also has not been any sort of success for them, but that is going to be NYSL's Crimsix. I know that his stats may be a little bit different. Whatever the case may be, Crim has been playing very solid compared to, I think, what people perceive of him. Now, NYSL has nothing to show for it, and while Crim gets a lot of flack, which is deserved because he's the greatest Call of Duty player of all time and he hasn't played up to those standards, I think he could be actually underrated currently. Because when most people look at stats, they just mainly look at KD, and not just for Crim, but any player. And if you were to do that in this scenario, Crim is 11 out of 12 when it comes to the main AR's overall KD with a 0.94. But I'm going to break down each game mode once again, like I've been doing. When it comes to the hardpoint, Crim's kills per minute puts him at number 4. His hardpoint KD is, well, it's not pretty. It is dead last at number 12 at a 0.89, but his damage per game is number 3, and his heal time is number 4. So Crim, similarly to how Octane has been performing, there are a lot of times where he does look lost on the map, you know, and he's throwing his life away, which is not ideal, especially as a main AR player. That, you know, you don't want to play like a submachine gun player as a main AR player. I get that, but at the very least, NYSL has turned their hardpoint around. You know, they didn't win at hardpoint until they picked up Paul X, and Crim has been at least making an impact. I mean, Crim is actually pretty good at this game. He's not great, and I don't have him amongst the best of the best. But like I said, people make it seem like Crim is the absolute worst. And I mean, shit, even me for a while, I'm a grown ass man, and I think he has been slowly improving and kind of quietly just playing solid Call of Duty. And his best mode by far is Control, where he's number 1 in both kills per game and damage per game. He finds himself at 6, so on the top half for Control KD with a 1.0 KD, but his kills and his damage is there. Next up in the B tier is Florida Mutineers Dave Patty, not Caesar Skies. Okay, I understand Caesar Skies, not the main AR, it's the flex. I get that. I have Dave Patty, and some people might be surprised by this because they did just get 4th. Dave Patty's got pretty good stats when you look at the KD, but Dave Patty is a guy that I want to succeed. He seems like a good kid. I think he's got a lot of potential, and I think he's got the absolute gunny. I think he's one of those players though who he plays a little too slow for my liking, a little too selfish for my liking, but I think he still just needs more time, right? He's very raw and he has a lot of talent. He just needs to really put it together to not only make himself look good, but also the rest of his team, right? Help complement his teammates. And I think that shows in his stats. In hardpoint, Dave Patty has the number 3 hardpoint KD, just below Methods and Dashi, the 2 top dogs, but his kills per minute are at 7. His damage per game is at 10 out of 12, and his heal time is 10 out of 12. So he's getting kills, but he's not really progressing on the map as much or putting himself in riskier situations. And then the S&D, he is 9th in kills per round, 11th in KD, and 7 in first blood. So he's in the bottom half of all 3 of those categories. And when it comes to Control, it is his best mode individually, stats wise, because he's number 2 in everything. He comes in at number 2 in kills per game, number 2 in KD, and number 2 in damage. So what that tells me though is not only is he more comfortable in Control than hardpoint, but because the game is slower, right? The pace of Control is slower than a hardpoint. He has more time to think, and so he can make the right play. That could be one of the reasons. Maybe in hardpoint he plays it slow and plays it a lot safer because he might not know what the best play is in hardpoint, given as it is very fast paced. And I mean, I can't blame him because Vanguard spawns don't make no damn sense. But he basically has 1 elite mode in Control, 1 solid one in hardpoint, and then 1 pretty poor one in Search and Destroy. So I have him in the B tier, but I think he has a lot lot of potential to grow. And then the last main AR in the B tier is going to be Trey Zero. I hate to put my man Trey here. I do have him coming in at number 5. And as much as I wanted to put him in the A tier, I think he has regressed a little bit. Now, there's obviously a lot of factors that go into that. I know he had COVID at the second major, and I can't fault him for that. I just got to make it as fair as I possibly can with all of these guys. And here's why I have him in the B tier. Trey is pretty damn consistent in all 3 modes. When you look at an overall KD, he ranks number 5 with a 104. When we talk about hardpoint, he's 9th in kills per minute, 4th in KD, 8th in damage per minute, and 5th in hill time. So this kind of makes sense because Trey does get a lot of hill time for the London Royal Ravens, and he has a very aggressive team. So he might not get a lot of opportunities as some of these other main ARs to get more kills or put more damage in, especially if he's soaking the hill, which that makes sense. And that is the difference between him and Dave Patty, where Dave Patty finds himself near the bottom. So he's not soaking up nearly as much hill time as a lot of these other main ARs, but he just still isn't really getting the damage and the kills as a lot of these other guys. Now, I know these stats are also very close to each other, but it's fun to really look at all of them and break it down. And then in S&D, Trey is 8th in kills per round, number 5 in KD with a 1.1, and then number 11 in first blood percentage. Now, like I said, similarly to Insight, Trey isn't necessarily a first blood specialist. That's just not the style that he plays, especially when you have Afro, Gizmo, and Nasty on your team. You're not really going to get many first bloods. I think Trey's actually really good at S&D. I think that is one of his better modes, even though the stats don't necessarily correlate directly. But moving on to Control, the last mode of the 3, he's 7th in kills per game, 5th in KD, and 7th in damage. He's right in that 5 through 7 range, so middle of the pack in those stats. And while I definitely think that he is a very good main AR, I think he kind of has been shown up as of late by a couple of other guys. That's why he is in the B tier, but he's in the B tier where he is above the bottom half of the AR. He's 5th in my opinion, but he doesn't really have an elite mode, like at least one. Like he's very solid, very consistent. And then the first player in the A tier is going to be Atlanta FaZe's Arcides. So I actually have 3 players in the A tier, and I'll explain why there's only 1 in the S tier when I get there. But just to break it down, I think Arcides kind of has a little bit of a similar situation as Trey Zero. Overall, Arcides is ranked 6 in KD. And then when we talk about hardpoint, out of the main ARs, comes in at number 3 in kills per minute, number 5 in KD with a 1.04, number 4 in damage, and number 6 in hill time. So he is top half of every single statistical category in hardpoint between all of the main ARs. He's also been great at S&D, and that's where my A tier comes from, where you at least have 2 modes that you've been elite in. It's just his control that's really weak, whereas control is amongst the worst when you look at it from main ARs. And I think when I watch Atlanta FaZe, that is the mode that he struggles the most on, in my opinion. And then the third best main AR that I have right now, also in the A tier, is going to be Los Angeles Guerrillas Slasher. Slasher was pretty ass after major number 1, and I don't know what happened, but he turned it around. Slasher finds himself sitting at number 4 in overall KD for all main ARs. In hardpoint specifically, I think this is Slasher's most average mode of the 3. He's 6 in kills per game, 6 in KD, 11 in damage, and 7 in hill time, just above the bottom half for almost all of those stats. But his S&D and control are very dominant. He's number 3 in kills per round in S&D, number 4 in KD with a 1.11, and number 2 behind just Arcides in first blood percentage. And then talking about control, he finds himself at number 4 in all 3 categories in kills per game, KD, and damage. So I actually think that he is the best S&D main AR in the game. Control, he's clearly in the top 4, and his hardpoint, while it's not bad, it's around league average, I would say. Okay, I can't gas Slasher up too much, but he deserves this spot. Moving on to number 2, also in the A tier though, and I was thinking about making him S tier main AR, I'll be honest with you guys, but this is why I just have him at the top of A tier. So when I ran through all these stats, by the way, I made my own Excel spreadsheet, and I went down and I tracked every single category, even the more advanced analytics, and methods was hands down great. Okay, just a quick rundown. You guys all already know how good he's been, but comes in at number 2 for overall KD, number 1 for hardpoint kills per minute, number 2 for KD and damage. Now his hill time, he is dead last. He doesn't soak no hills. Then in S&D, he is number 1 in kills per round, number 1 in KD, number 9 in first blood percentage, and then in control, he is 5th in kills per game, 3rd in KD, and 6th in damage. When you crunch all of the statistics together, and I watch Zinni. Zinni's a great player. I think at times he can be selfish. Most main ARs are, to be honest, because you know, one of the things that you kind of just have to do is you're going to be baiting your teammates. Now, I do think Zinni is a lot faster than most of the other main ARs that I have on here. So I'm not necessarily saying he's slow, but he could be a little kill whorish. Now, clearly, it's been working for Boston because they've been a very good team. One of the top 5 teams in the game right now. They have very good placings at both majors so far. But anyways, but to get to my point, he's been great. So I would put him in the top 3 when it comes to hardpoint S&D for main ARs. And his control, he would be just above kind of league average. I'd have him in that like 5th, 6th spot. Hands down, the second best main AR in my opinion. And A tier is very freaking good. You know, it's not a shot at him or any of the other guys. So the only main AR in the S tier and the best main AR player in the game right now I have is Dashi. Now, I've said this a bunch of times in my career where Dashi can be very selfish, you know, and like he's always going to get his when it comes to KD, and I get that. But I do think Dashi has really grown as a player as of late, especially going into Vanguard. Proved it at the first major. I know the second major didn't go how they were expecting it to, but that happens. So let me just throw some numbers out. Dashi is number 1 in overall KD with a 1.22 out of all the ARs, number 2 in hardpoint kills per minute, but he's number 1 in KD and damage per game, number 9 in hill time. So while he does find himself in the bottom 4 of hill time, he clearly is getting a ton of kills, playing his life, and Optics one of the best hardpoint teams in the game. And then we talk about S&D. His kills per round put him just above league average, coming in at number 6, but his KD is number 2, right below methods, and his first blood percentage is number 3. So he's amongst the top 3 in both KD and first blood percentage. Out of the main ARs, he does a good job getting first blood and not throwing it away, okay? Valuing his life to where he might not get as many kills per round, even though it's very close. But we all know Dashi is a great S&D player, great hardpoint player, and a great control player. Because in control, he comes in at number 3 for kills per game, number 1 for KD, and number 3 for damage per game. So Dashi essentially is top 2 in every single mode. That's why I think he is the only S tier main AR right now. That is my tier list, guys. I think this is literally perfect. And if you disagree, I don't care. I still love y'all. Have a good one.